builder kits, and today we're going to be building a set of shelves for here and here. And we're going to be doing a little bit of welding in this project. The welding is going to be in the garage, and always remember, when you're doing welding, have an adult.
Okay, so we are going to make, as Blake was saying, 2 sets of vertical shelves. So these long pieces right here are going to be the verticals. These pieces we're going to weld to the back of that, and they're going to go from the vertical piece back towards the wall. And then that wood, that pallet wood that we cut, is going to sit on top of the shelves, and we'll probably screw that to the shelves with some self-tapping screws. Blake is going to tell you the tools we're going to use, and then he's also going to explain this little piece of metal that's right there. We're going to cut that into little pieces, and we're going to use that as tabs on the bottom and on the top back of the shelves as our anchor points, so that we can actually anchor to the wall. Now we're going to use concrete anchors, but you could build a shelf like this and attach it to drywall and use the same type of setup, just maybe with an anchor and a screw or a drywall screw. So Blake, why don't you tell them what we're going to do with this stuff?
Okay, so we're going to be, this little piece of metal, there are these blue lines on it, and we're going to be using the shear to cut them and put them on the bottom and tops of these. And we're going to be using the welder to weld it all together. And we'll be using the square to make sure it is square. And these magnets, they help when you are welding. And then just to make sure everything's even and level, we're going to be using this level.
Yep, that's right. And we'll show you the magnets. These are welding magnets, so it's nice because you don't have to clamp or hold the pieces together. We're just doing 90-degree angles. You could do 45s or whatever on these as well. We're going to do 90, so we could literally just put the magnet on it and then attach the other piece that will hold it in place, so that when we get ready to weld, it's exactly where we want it to be. And like Blake said, the little metal piece has some blue lines that I drew on it. This tubing is all 3/4 inch square, so we're going to cut that metal at 3/4 of an inch wide, so it's as wide as the tubes, and we're going to make it 1.5 inches long. That way it sticks out the back and it gives us enough room to get a drill in to put the anchor in. And then
the welder is 180.
Yeah, right now we'll probably change that a little bit, but right now we have it set at 12 gauge and 180 amps. Again, you can adjust it. This is that ESAB machine that we've talked about before. It's a smart welder, and if you adjust this up and down, you can see it changes based on the thickness, and we just have it set for 12 gauge, which is about what this is. I think this is 1/8 inch steel. So we are going to cut these little pieces, then we're going to get our marks. This particular piece, you can make this any size you want, obviously, just like any of the projects we do. These pieces we made at 5.5 feet, and these ones are 12 inches deep because our pallet wood is around 4 inches. We're going to put 3 of those per shelf. So that gives us 12 inches, around 12 inches, so these are 12 inches. So we're going to get to cutting, and then we'll show you what it looks like when we weld it too. Okay, so we have our piece of metal. This is our shear. This is a 3-in-1 shear from Harbor Freight. There's another video around somewhere about how to use a shear. And we're going to put it into the blue line. There's a little mark in there, and then we're going to pull down on this lever, and it's going to shear. So I'm going to get this lined up, and then we'll pull down on it. Okay, Blake, start to pull down. Now, I don't know if you can see it from there. When you pull down, there's this guide that actually clamps down on the metal, holds it in place. And now as we pull it, it's going to shear this metal. Ready? Pull. Watch your head so you don't get conked in the head. Ready? Okay. So there's the piece that got cut off. There is the piece that we cut. So it's a real nice, clean line. So this one we don't need anymore. This one, we're going to cut 4 of these at 3/4 of an inch, and then we'll be ready to start welding it all together. Okay, hold on a second. Start pulling down on it. Okay, ready? And there's our little 3/4 inch by 1.25 inch piece. We're gonna do that 3 more times.
So here are the 4 pieces that we just finished cutting, and now we started marking the metal. And when we're done marking, we're gonna use the magnets, and we're gonna put the magnets on where we marked it, and we're gonna put the level on it and see if it's square too. And then we use the hammer, just lightly tap it up or down, just to make it level. And on a different project, we also use this method.
That's right. So we put a couple marks on here. You want to grab a piece of metal and stick it on. We have our 18 inches, so we're going to line. Yep, we're going to line this up, and we're going to stick our magnet right there. And that's going to be, actually, if we really want to do it, we can do a magnet on either side to make sure it holds it in place for when we weld. And I'll bring the camera over here in a second so you can see what this looks like. Okay, so that's what it looks like up close. We have a mark right here, and we're going to do the top of our shelf at 18 inches for this one. So that's the mark Blake was talking about. And you can see how these magnets give us a nice 90-degree angle. If we actually put that square on here, it would work the same way, but the magnets will hold it in place while we put a weld on. So we're going to get a little weld on this side and a weld on the other side, and then we're going to do that all the way up our marks, and we're going to do it on this piece too.
And when we're done welding this piece, we're going to be using the square to make sure it's square. And if it's square, then we'll be good.
That's right, we'll double check it with that. And then like Blake said, we have a level. What we'll use the level for this project is when we go to actually mount it to the wall, we'll take that and we'll take a bigger level and make sure that everything is good. But with these magnets being at 90-degree angles like this, we know this will end up being level as long as this one is. Yep, yep. And there's another one. There's the 2-foot level. We use that, and we also have a 4-foot level. We're end up using that when we go to mount this. Okay.
Sometimes it's useful to have different types of longer levels than smaller levels in case you need them for different projects.
Yep, that's right. Okay, so we're going to set this back up there on the tripod, and we're going to weld a little bit.
So this is the clip for the welder, and we're going to be clipping it onto this. And if you don't, then it's just like it won't be as powerful.
Well, it won't work because this is the ground, right? So the electric welders, like a MIG or a TIG welder, works off electricity, and it creates a circuit. So this is the ground clamp that we'll put on. So you have to clamp it and have a good clean ground. So it's got to be on bare metal. If you had some paint, we would have scratched the paint off. Like Blake just did. We'll lay that down. We got it clamped, and that way anything that we weld along here will finish. This will finish the circuit for it. So if we try to weld without it, it's not going to do anything because there's not a complete circuit loop. And then Blake, you want to show them the gauge?
This is the gauge. The gauge you would use to see how thick the metal is. Like here, it fits here, but there's a little bit of space. And if I try to put it in here.
Oh, you can tilt it a little bit so we can see it. Yep, see it fits on that one. And
the next one's too thin.
It doesn't fit. So then.
So you would flip it over, and it says it's 1/8.
So 1/8 inch. So like we were talking about on the welder, for this particular welder, instead of just having to know like the amperage you need to set, we could set it at 1/8. So actually right there, it says 1/8 inch. So we're just gonna go off of that.
And here are there are a ton of different sizes from the thinnest all the way to the thickest one, which is
really thick. I don't think we're going to be welding any bridges or structures with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we have our ground. We're going to get the, Blake, you want to grab the other part of the welder, the actual handle?
Here's what you use to weld, but I'm going to set this right here. But if you hit these This is a different type. I think it's TIG welding.
TIG welding, yeah, these are the sticks for TIG. We're not doing that. We're gonna do MIG welding
We
today.
might use TIG welding in a different project.
Yeah, we might use it for those other shelves we're building. The MIG welding is a little bit easier, especially for beginners, and that's where we're gonna go. So we're gonna clip the end of this off. You can see some of that came out. And then obviously we have the welding helmets. Definitely have to have some sort of welding helmet or goggles or glasses, because you never ever want to look directly into the spark of a welder, because it will blind you. You can have it where that you can look momentarily if it's an accident. You're just going to see spots, kind of like if you were looking at the sun for a second. But that's the intensity of it. You wouldn't want to stare at the sun for 10 or 20 seconds. You don't want to look directly at a welder for while it's welding for that period of time. So, definitely get a welding helmet. These ones are these hitbox ones. We had a video on those earlier. Those were just from Amazon. They're actually pretty nice. I have an ESOB helmet. It was much more expensive, but honestly, I think this works about the same. And these ones have a really big viewing area, which is nice. They're a little bit bigger than the one that I have. So, okay, Blake's gonna cut that, and then we're gonna weld. Sticking out, the wire sticking out just a little bit. What we're gonna do is, we're gonna go right in between the two joints, and we're just gonna give it a little zap, a couple little zaps. Now, when you're welding, if you wanna, as you practice and you get better, you wanna actually roll it. So, you would do real small circles, and that gives you a nice clean weld across it. This welder is actually smart enough that you really could just grab it. You could just start to zap it and just go right in a little line, and it's going to probably still give you a decent weld. So we'll probably do that, but as you start to practice and get better, you want to do little circles. Okay, we're putting the welding helmets down, and we're going to weld.
Wait.
Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it was pretty good, except Blake came off the line a little bit. So instead of going straight across, he came down, which is fine. We'll grind all this down at the end. So we're actually going to hit that again, and then we'll flip it over and we're going to do the other side.
Well, I'm also just starting.
And he's just starting. Okay, so one thing we just realized, I'm so used to working in old clothes when I'm down here that I never think about it. But you also really should have a welding shirt or a welding jacket on, because especially when you're working this close, sparks are going to fly off. Blake got a little teeny burn mark in his shirt, which is fine, but the bigger issue is you don't want to catch yourself on fire. We don't want his shirt or his pants or anything to catch on fire, so we put a welding jacket on. Definitely another piece of safety equipment to have, wear a welding jacket.
Oh, no.
Nothing from the building. They're like in the jacket. There we go. Yep. That was it.
That's clean.
Yep, very good weld.
These clamps are heavy.
Real slow, yeah, slow down. Maybe fill that little hole. Yep, that works.
So we just finished welding this. We did it this top side and the other side. We did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these, and we just sanded them down so then they're flatter.
Yeah, sometimes you're going to get little nubs or build up, so I just use this little air grinder, little angle grinder with a probably like a 40 grit disc on it, and we just knocked that down. That way when we were flipping it over, it was laying flat on the table. The other thing we did was, as we were doing it, we actually clamped both sides down to make sure that it didn't twist, because as you weld stuff, I was telling Blake, it heats the metal, and depending on the thickness of the metal or how much heat you put into it, it's going to want to cause the metal to twist or warp. So if you keep it clamped down, that'll keep it nice and flat and square, so that things aren't going to twist and the shelves will be even. So we're going to get this one cleaned up, and then we're going to do this actually 3 more times, because we have 2 sets of shelves we're building. Once we do that, we're going to grind down all the welds, and then we're going to clean it off and paint it. Oh, and then we're going to put our little tabs on the top and bottom. So we're going to show you, we'll show you guys what that looks like once we get it all cleaned up and we get ready for paint.
Hey, we're back. So we just ground down this, and you can see there's like metal that's off.
The welds? Mm-hmm.
We painted the whole thing black with this spray paint.
Yeah, this is Zero Rust. A lot of people may not have heard of it. It's similar to Pour 15. So you guys probably saw the metal had a little bit of surface rust that we cleaned up. But we wanted the finish to be flat black anyway, so we used Zero Rust. And what that does is it will actually encapsulate the rust and it'll seal it in, so we never have to worry about it really coming back, especially for these, because they're inside, they're not going to be exposed to the weather. And it gives us a nice, tough, durable, like matte finish coating.
And we're putting one board at the bottom and one board at the top, just to see how it would look.
Yeah, so we got all the boards cut, as you guys saw before. So we put one board up here and one board down here to make sure that everything is square and aligned. And then we're going to go in and put the rest of the boards in place. And what we're doing here is we just drilled holes in the wood so that it didn't split. Essentially, there's going to be 3 boards per shelf. So we stacked all 3 boards and drilled straight down through both so that the screws end up in the same spot. And instead of using a drill bit, I'm using one of these little self-tapping screws to mark or to drill the holes out. So we're going to lean the wood up against like this is. We're going to stick a little pencil through the hole to get our mark, take that off, and we're going to use this little self-tapper, because these things are fantastic, and it's the same size as the screw that we're using, to go in, drill it, take it out, and we put the board back in place and put it on. And you can see there's what it looks like with a screw in it. These screws that we're using are, let me see how long they are. These are, well, they say 37 millimeter. I think they're like 1.25 inches or something like that. But you can see that's how long it is. So essentially, if you can see that there, it'll go through the wood and then down into the metal and stick. And we're just putting one screw per board. We were originally going to do 2, but we thought we'd do 1 because once you put a couple boards, it stiffens it all up. So that's it. Blake and I are going to start putting the rest of these shelves on, and then when it's done, we'll stand it up in place and we'll show you what it looks like.
This is the finished product, and we put one here, and then the other one here, and we connected them to the wall.
Yep, we just used little concrete anchors because we had to put it into bricks, so we put it into the mortar joints. And here, we'll just show you what it looks like. So you can see there are all the shelves. We just used, again, pallet wood, all cut just randomly. I mean, same length, but or same width, but random colors to mix it up a little bit. So that was it. Again, these ones were, for our setup, this was 5.5 feet tall and 20 inches wide. Okay, so this is what it looks like on both sides of the fireplace. What do you think, Blake?
When you guys are building it, I hope you guys enjoy it. And like and subscribe and hit the notification bell right down there. See ya!